Guys, do you remember Ed the Duck? I hope you do, because today we're taking a look at one of his computer games and we're going to have a look at a few different versions. Which one's best? Are any best? Let's find out. Ed the Duck was a popular mascot of children's BBC, the kids' programming interstitials broadcast from the announcer's booth at BBC Television Centre, which the show called the Broom Cupboard. The Duck was a violent, egotistical puppet with a punk haircut taken from a Blue Peter toy from the 70s, and his nemesis was Wilson the Butler, who the audience at home would never see save for his gloved hands. Ed the Duck would assist the CBBC presenter in filling the dead air time between children's TV shows. Ed proved to be very popular amongst children and became a major marketing icon for the BBC at the time, so naturally he got his own spin-off computer game. This was based heavily on Rainbow Islands, according to the press of the day. Rainbow Islands is a game that we will be covering in its own right on GameHammer at some point, but for now, all you need to know is that Ed the Duck does not play an awful lot like Rainbow Islands. You don't throw rainbows, you don't even collect fruit, just stars. That's it. This is, instead, its own platform action game. Is it a good platform action game? Well, let's take a look and find out. We'll start with the ZX Spectrum version today, because why not? The ZX Spectrum version is fast-paced, but that's pretty much all I can say about it that's nice. The enemies blend into the background, and since they are also positioned exactly where you will be landing, or at least jumping through on your way to a platform, you're in for a very, very challenging game. The goal is to collect 20 stars from each level, and those stars are positioned all through the vertically scrolling level, but to collect these stars you have to dodge the numerous enemies. You can throw snowballs to freeze the enemies temporarily, and you'll need to do that a lot because you can't kill anything in this game. Jumping is annoying. You jump too high and you land too slowly. I know he's a duck, but come on, he can still land quickly if he wants to, surely. It's also a little difficult to land precisely where you want to. And you'll also have a major problem in that enemies will be lurking off screen right up until the point where you hit them. This is a hard game, far too hard for its own good if I'm honest. It was aimed at fans of Ed the Duck, which were usually children who watch children's BBC. This isn't a game that children will be likely to enjoy, it's too tough even to get off level 1. Sadly, I cannot recommend this version of the game. Let's move on to the Spectrum's younger stepbrother, the Amstrad CPC. Let's hope that one's a bit better. Well, yes and no. The CPC immediately solves one of the Spectrum's major problems with this game because you can see the enemies clearly. They won't be blending into the background on the Amstrad. That's because the CPC version is bright and colourful, making full use of the Amstrad's enhanced graphics abilities. The problem is that the enhanced colour comes at a price. The CPC version isn't as fast as the Spectrum version, so it's just more sluggish and the controls feel far heavier. I do prefer this version to the Spectrum one because the enemies are more visible now, but even with this issue gone, the game still isn't all that great if I'm honest. Having said that, I used to play this game a lot as a child because I actually liked it. Now I've grown up and played a hell of a lot more games, I can see the faults in this one for what they are, and I can't recommend it. It's a real shame. The game is bright and fun-looking, but the gameplay is severely lacking, and I think that's all down to the poor enemy placement. You have to consider each and every move before you make it, which in some games is just fine, but in an action game of this sort, stopping to consider every move just isn't good design. So let's move on to our final version. Maybe the 16-bit computers had more luck with this. We can hope anyway. We'll be taking a look at the Amiga version to find out. First and foremost, the Amiga has an excellent soundtrack, which is great. I hadn't noticed the absence of music on the 8-bit versions all that much, so there is that, but now that it's here, I have to say it rounds the game out very nicely. The graphics also look wonderful, which you should expect from the Amiga, let's be honest. The Amiga version also has the fast movement of the Spectrum version, plus the enemies don't blend in, so it has the advantages of the CPC version as well. This is definitely the best version of the game, and the one I would have no problem recommending you give a try if you're going to play Ed the Duck. The problem is, Ed jumps too high now. It feels like he goes just that little bit higher than he did on the Spectrum and the CPC, which puts him into range of even more enemies. The enemy placements are still just as poor as they were on the other versions, and that hampers the game significantly. This is still a poorly designed game, all things considered. I agree with the critics that this is clearly based on Rainbow Islands, but the thing about Rainbow Islands is that the levels are all designed to take into account the fact that the player can build bridges to navigate those levels, rather than relying solely on jumping. Ed the Duck doesn't have bridge building, it's all jumping, but the layout of the levels doesn't take that into account. You are therefore left with the need to make split-second decisions on where and how to move, but the enemies are all positioned as if you're using a method of ascent that just isn't available to you. It ruins the game. I really wanted to like this game, I really did. I enjoyed it as a kid, although when I look back now I can't say for the life of me what I saw in it. Maybe it's just that I was a fan of Ed the Duck on television, and I thought the graphics on the Amstrad version were nice. But now I've come back to it, I can't recommend this game at all. It's clunky, it's poorly designed, and it's just not fun. If you must play it, play the Amiga version, because it's the best rendition of it when all things are considered. But to be honest with you, I'd avoid it entirely, because there are far better games out there. Okay, there you are. Look, Ed the Duck as a character was great. I was a big fan of Ed the Duck when he was on the Broom Cupboard on Children's BBC back in the early 90s. It was a good time. And the game, unfortunately, is not a good time. I used to like this. When I was a kid on the Amstrad CPC, I used to love playing Ed the Duck because it was fun, it was colourful, it was interesting. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe it's the fact that I've grown up and now I've got access to all kinds of games, including, where is it here? Including Rainbow Islands on the collections. I hope I picked up the right one there. One of Taito Legends 1 or 2. One of these Taito Legends has Rainbow Islands on. And that's essentially what Ed the Duck is ripping off, only without the bridge building, which means the game doesn't work properly. It's all aligned to be able to build bridges, and you can't build bridges in Ed the Duck. It's just how it is. So, poor design made this a poor game. It's a very unfortunate situation. I wanted to like it, I just can't. So there we are. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I hope you did like this, and if you did, remember to click that like button, share this with your friends so that they'll know a good game when they see it, or in this case, kind of game. And do subscribe for future videos because there will be more in the future. But until next time, I've been Zoe Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching GameHammer Daily, and I'll see you on Monday. If you liked today's video, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Thank you.